Hi, this is natu, a guy who's way too old and way too long involved in this game, and you're watching Thorin's YouTube channel.
Right, I'm here for another episode of Reflections, and this one is going to be with naSu, who is a very old school Counter-Strike 1.6 and CSGO player, although that part's not really as great. And he's been doing coaching after that as well. There's all sorts of stuff we can get into. But first things first, just for a little humble brag, I will say, people might know I did this on the Forest interview. This is one of those interviews, if people don't know, that I have unironically been trying to get for about like 17 or 18 years. Because these are the guys where they just don't do interviews on 1.6. And if you don't know, there wasn't media like before. Like, first of all, you could do it as text, and obviously it's like easy. But even then, they wouldn't do the you guys don't know. They wouldn't even do text interviews back in the day. Like, these are the people where they always said no. So you've got to literally just wait until the bitter end till like they know no one they even know is going to watch it. Like, there's all the youthful shyness is gone. Plus, eventually, once your career is sort of enough in the distance, you almost want to have a reminisce on the good days and talk on the good times, right now, Sue?
That's right. Yeah, but I feel you're right. Like back in 1.6, if you wanted to interview somebody from Finland, it was 99% of the time it was my brother, no one else.
Yes. Oh, you remember, mate, at those events, like. Because that's one thing you have to give me credit for, mate. I wasn't scared to be rejected. I would just go around the whole group, you remember? Like, I'd go like, what about you, contE? He'd be like, what about you, this guy? Everyone. And if it was lurppis, that's why the maddest one ever, just as a random side story, was that one you remember at one of those like WEM events where for some mad reason, because if you keep asking, remember, eventually someone might just say yes for no reason. The maddest one ever, dude, was when randomly ruuit just started doing all those interviews with me. Do you remember? Even though he himself was not at all like the person who do the interviews normally. But I think it's because I just kept asking and he felt sorry or something. He just did like a whole bunch of me. It was mad. He didn't even, by the way, he didn't even try the interviews to like give deep answers. He'd just be like, yeah, probably win. Like, no, do we lose? Whatever, it was a bad game. Like, it was actually mad. You're right. Like, Finland especially was a bit closed off if you weren't Finnish, basically. Spoiler. The joke is they're not exactly super social with each other anyway. They have to know each other anyway. It's just a different place, guys. Just a different place. Right, let's start. Because one thing I want to ask you about at the beginning, just as a humorous starting is, because no one knows what any of the words in Finnish mean in other language, because it's so distant a language to all European languages, right? No one even knows, dude, that your alias just means piglet, as in like that character out of Winnie the Pooh. Now, here's the thing. That's not quite as gangster if you're a sick player, if your name's like Piglet, right? But you got away with it, mate. No one except Finnish people knew it. Why is that your nickname?
I have no idea. Like, you know, when I started playing, I was maybe 12 years old. I don't know. I can't remember. 12 or something like that. So it was just something that I picked up and never changed. So there's no real story behind it.
Well, one thing obviously that leads us into, though, is a lot of people also don't know this. So, you know, in the modern day, you have players like monaSu, for example.
Yeah.
And all the hype was like, he's 16 years old and he's playing with the big ones. It's like, first of all, guys, like, naSu actually was playing the big boys at 14 and he was going to the LANs and beating them at 15. Like, that's real. People don't know that story. Like, dude, if there's even a detail, I purposely looked it up so I can make it sound super sick, right? Because here's how it sounds. I found there was a tournament in 2004, it was an online tournament, where naSu, 14 years old, beat Forest and went further in the tournament. Now, it's not quite as sick when I mentioned that. Forest wasn't on any team you've ever heard of, and even Forest was 16 at the time. No, it sort of collapses under the context. But this is true. When you were 14, you were already like entering the tier 1, right?
Oh, which event is this?
This was the online Game Pox one, if you remember. It was like one of the first ones where you guys lost like Titans in the final or something.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. I did not remember that, but I was just looking at Wikipedia and I remember that we lost the Titans in the finals, yeah.
So what was it like? How were you able to be 14 and already be playing? You weren't intimidated?
Nope. Like, at least when we were playing as wings, it was like, well, all the time during 1.6, nobody in Finland, for example, was paid to play. So it was more like a hobby and not so serious as it is like nowadays when there's so much money to be made and all of this. So it was more like hobby, getting to travel, all of this. So I don't think any of the Finns really had any like really problems with pressure. I don't know. Maybe it's a Finnish thing, but yeah.
By the way, since obviously one of the most famous pieces of trivia about you is you are lurppis' brother, you're his younger brother. By the way, he's only 2 years older. People act like you're like 10 years past. It's only 2 years or whatever. But what I want to know was this. A lot of people might not know this, and it'll certainly come up later in the interview. But one thing I actually admired about lurppis, even though at the beginning of his career he was a little bit of a meme, was he was a mega tryhard. Like, he really did, because if people don't know, he was like a fan of the pro scene before he himself became pro. When he was, I think, 14 or 15, was when he was doing like got frag stuff and that. So he himself was a fan, like the Heatons of the potties. Well, then he got the chance to play them. And he was the guy killing himself. Like, we've got to like get to that level. We've got to beat them. We've got to like, we can do it all. So what I wanted to know was, were you always both just playing CS, or was it more like, did you get drawn into his hobby? Would you have gone pro if he wasn't a player, didn't play cat? If you didn't have a brother, would you have gone pro in CS?
No. But if I remember correctly, I was the one who played CS first, and I think he like picked up on it later on. But I think it's safe to say that if he didn't do like all the work, if you will, then no, I would have stopped at maybe a few years into the game. Maybe it's my persona, but I think that I kind of needed somebody to push me to actually put in the work. And yeah, without him, I think that I would have quit so much sooner than I did. Yeah.
Right, one thing, because obviously you mentioned there, the first team we've got to talk about is Wings, which is the team that you guys made. And this is like, the joke here is, dude, I'll do them in the future, don't worry. I'm finally getting this company together. I'm going to get like the sponsorship and the funding, because I've always wanted to do the real interesting documentaries in esports. Everyone thinks, right, that's like, do one about like Neo. It's everyone's seen those videos and the major we all know those stories. What they don't know is like this Wings one is literally like a Disney movie, guys. Listen, right? There's a team where it's two sets of brothers. It's not a joke. There's naSu and lurppis, but a lot of people don't know this other one. That's a piece of trivia people don't know. They don't know Shiri and Barak were brothers as well. Yeah. So there's two sets of brothers, and then there's just Kopi, who's just a cool guy who's good at CS. I don't know what his connection is, but he's just in the mix, right? And this team of like two sets of brothers and a fifth guy, who were all nobodies, by the way. No one's been in a top team. No one's done anything in CS yet. Famously, it was the WEG Season 3 qualifier. So WEG was a tournament that was held in Korea or China later, and it was a big Asian thing. And the whole thing was you had to like go through a qualifier to get there, a bit like World Cyber Games, but it wasn't like per nation. It was like a multi-thing. And for this one, famously, they actually had, instead of just inviting people, they had a European LAN qualifier. And the joke is, if you ever go back and look at the list of teams on this, almost every team is supposed to beat your team, be better than your team. And most of them are supposed to go to the tournament. And obviously your team comes along and didn't just like qualify, you won the tournament, which was like a super like what out of nowhere story. Like I said, that would be a Disney movie, mate. Like a bunch of friends really do just get together. Like if we try hard enough, we can beat them all. And then next thing you know, you go in a career like that. Give me some thoughts on this team. And like, was it a team that started as like a trying to be pro? How did it get to this point where it could do this miracle run and become really good?
I was actually trying to remember how it all started earlier today, but I can't really remember. But I know I think that in the beginning we started to play as just a bunch of friends, and then somehow somebody got us into one of those better channels to find practice opponents from. So yeah, we started playing, and even before the WEG qualifiers, I think we attended a few events. We actually won the BYOC DreamHack tournament and some smaller stuff. But before that event, I think it's safe to say nobody from our team expected us to win. I mean, I think that we had like a small chance to qualify, but as you said, at least on paper, like when you look at all of the teams and the year 2005, I think we should have lost to almost all of them. But yeah, I have absolutely no idea what happened there. I remember that we lost to, we might have lost to both Team 9 and Asylum in there.
Okay.
But then I think we had like a do or die match against NIP, and then we crushed them. And then I don't know what happened. We got like really good all of a sudden. No idea how. But yeah, then we won NIP and Noah in the finals, and I know something just clicked because like after this event we were good all of a sudden. Like I don't know.
What was it like to go to Korea and go to the tournament? Must be pretty wild, being as you're like 15 years old. I doubt you've been to Asia or anything before, right?
Yeah, No, that was my first time in Asia. That was my first trip outside of Europe, I think. And well, it was my mother was actually first telling us that I'm not gonna go there because I was so young. I think he told that like my brother, it's okay for him to go, but said that yeah, my brother, it's fine for him to go. He was 17 maybe. I was 15, and she was like, okay, there's no way that you're gonna go there because I think when we were about to go, we were told that it's gonna be like 3 weeks minimum, maybe. And then if we get further, it's going to be like 5 weeks or 7 weeks or
if
whatever.
people don't know, back in the day, a tournament used to be like 3 days long. But these ones, as you say, you stayed for like a month basically, right? You were in like an apartment and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, but my godmother actually, yeah, she called my mother and they had a discussion, and then all of a sudden it was okay for me to go. But yeah, me being so young, I had to discuss it in my school, obviously, because I was going to be away for like at least 3 weeks. And I don't know, everybody in school, like the teachers, nobody really liked me. So in the end, they actually told me that it's not okay for me to go. But somehow my mom said that okay, like it's kind of once in a lifetime, so you're gonna go anyway. So nice turn of events.
Okay, but, as in the school didn't know you were going, and you were like, "Fuck it, I'm just going anyway."
Yeah, but I don't know. Everybody in the school has some kind of problem towards me, maybe.
What was it? You seem so chill. Yeah, you're a pretty chill guy, just a smiling guy, just quiet,
Yeah, but I don't know. But anyways, yeah. I got the thumbs up to go there. We went to Korea. We ended up being there for I want to say 5 weeks, but at least ish.
Sure.
So I think we got past the group stage. I think, but it was kind of odd event. Like if you compare it to anything that runs now, because I think we had we're living in a hotel. We had rooms where we sleep. Then we had one room like for every team that we had 6 computers in. So it was like every morning we go there, we practice, and in the weekends, I think we had to go to the studio and to play. And then it was kind of nice. Like it was 2005, and the next day after the games, we could watch them on TV in Korea. So it was odd, but nice.
Right, you won't believe this, but I actually have a mildly, keyword mildly, depends how you answer, mildly controversial question about this event. So here we go. Because listen, it's so many years later, no one can get upset now, mate. There's no one's going to be listening to it, right? You might remember this was the event where the famous detail of this event is this is the first time ever, realistically, that all of the Asian teams were suddenly twice as good. Famously, WNV, Chinese team, won the event. The Koreans were second. Now, here's the problem I have. You can see where I'm going on this, mate. The Koreans did it everywhere. You know this. They went to World Cyber Games later and ESWC. No matter where they were just good. They did just grind. Here's my one problem. I know a few people, put it this way, I'll tell you some of the names I've even said it, but people like Real, the ones that are a bit more the odds are a bit more real, don't give a fuck, they'll say what they think. They told me, all I'm going to tell you, Thorin, is this. If you played the Chinese, in Asia, magically they were 3 times better, and then you'd play them at ESWC and they're all right, but they're not world beat. Basically, do you think there was some shenanigans at this event? Because obviously, let's face it, it was run by Asian companies at the time. This was a big storyline actually that they overcame. Because if people don't know, the past WEGs, some of these same players would come last place, and they would almost be considered a laughing stock. If you got them in the group, you'd think easy win, walkover almost. So, do you think there was ever any shenanigans? Because there's a mixture I've heard either. It doesn't have to be that they rigged the game. It could just be that in, for example, later events in China, maybe they could hear the commentators or something. Do you think there was something dodgy where they're actually really good? What do you think?
Thinking it right now, I don't think so. But I can't remember if that's something that we thought back in the day. But I think WNV was, interesting team because they had I can't remember all of their players, but before this event, I don't think I heard of any of their players before this event. And then all of a sudden they come up with Jungle. I think yeah.
Yeah, that was the star.
He was obviously the best player in their team. Ended up being probably the best player in the tournament. And but after the tournament, I'm not sure if they attended many events or if it was just
a few.
Or if he just completely disappeared or what happened. But it was really odd. But I think. I don't know, because I don't feel like they were so good as a team, but I remember us laughing when we practiced against them in the hotel, it was a common joke. The jungle would just destroy us. Like it was.
Oh right, okay.
It was really insane.
Even in
like,
scrims.
Yeah, it was really hard. Like that's why I don't think they had like any funky business, but who knows?
Well, fair enough. That's a fair answer.
Yeah,
Like,
because we played in the studio, and if I remember correctly, we did not even have like any like what do you call it? Because there was no audience, so I don't think there was any.
oh, so it wouldn't be a speaker system with the commentators at this event. I get it. Yeah, okay.
I don't think they had it.
I think you might be right. I think it was on TV or something, wasn't it? It was like a TV
Yeah.
studio, right?
Yeah, but it's really odd. But I don't think they had anything.
No problem. By the way,
I'd like to think so. Yeah.
as I said, this team, this would be an awesome documentary, just a Wings documentary. This would actually be a great area to do because, as you said, the joke is after this event and somehow like getting the pro experience, the team is just like just good. Like before, it was like okay. Now just going to all the national tournaments, you're always in the mix, you know, right? I've always heard from Lurppis, like even though this was far from the most successful team, this is actually one of his favourite teams. He did say like essentially, it's not a joke. It did have like a great vibe, and they were friends. So, what do you fondly remember the Wings team? What do you think of kind of the mixture of players you had?
Well, I wouldn't say it's my favorite team, at least, you know, as players, because we had some bad problems with the personas in the team. One is actually linked to this event. I don't know if it's true, but shortly after the event, I heard that the other pair of brothers, one of them wanted to lose so that we can go home. Because he felt like, okay, we've been in Korea for 5 weeks.
Right.
And I think like the last game was, if we win, I think the finals were in, I don't know if it was in other country, but like it would have taken us like 2 more weeks or something like this.
Right.
So I don't know. I can't remember where I heard it, but like I heard that one of them wanted to lose so that we go home.
So you're homesick or something?
Yeah, something like that. Because, you know, it's obviously it's hard. No one of us was like super old or super experienced, you know, being abroad. Okay. We've been there for 5 weeks, but
does that story piss you off? If it's true?
I don't know, because I don't really know if it's true or not, but it's I could, you know, buy the story.
Okay, it's
given all of the other stuff that happened with this guy.
Okay. Sad thing is, I think I even know which player it is, but we'll keep that to one side. Right, here's the question I have for you then. One thing people don't know, and it's one thing me and Lurppis have discussed many, many times, is if people make like a top 10, top 20 players in 1.6 list, I'm sorry, you aren't going to get on the list bit. But here's the thing, not because you weren't good, it's because fans, you just didn't have that same star appeal, right? They would like the joke is in your own teams, they'd pick like ruuit and people like that, wouldn't they? They'd pick like the big names, and obviously all the Heatons and all, you know, all the other names. But the thing me and Lurppis always discussed was if people know these teams before we got to some of the big names like ruuit came in later, you were the best player on all these teams. Like you were the best player on Wings and on Hoorah, like you just were. Like weren't you like? Didn't you feel like it at the time? Like I remember watching all the demos. You had a really all-round game, even though you were like 15, 16.
Yeah, but I think it's just like when we played as Wings and Serious Gaming and Hooray, I don't even remember the team or the lineup in there. But anyways, like I had a completely different role back then. And then when we created the team with contE and ruuit and all of those, it felt like it makes more sense for me to kind of support them in what they do, because they were like, I don't know, they needed somebody to make them some space to, you know, function well. That's how I felt, yeah.
Have you always been like that in terms of mentality to the game? Because you know the way players are. Like, if people don't know, especially back in the day when there was no prize money, a lot of players, it was about like ego. It was like, I'm the best player. Famously back then, it was off skill, wasn't it? Like, if you had the most skill, it's sort of like, to be fair, sports can be like this. It's like the NBA. If you were the best player, you can sort of say, like, give me the ball, I'm going to go for the shot. Like, you can demand it. It seemed like you could have maybe been that player, but you chose not to. Were you never a guy who wanted to be the star and be out front and be top frag in every game?
No, I think that I would have enjoyed it if I, you know, got to play that role. But I also know that when we got contE and ruuit, like it's not going to work if I don't do that, because contE, for example, he was I was going to say if you look at the stats on Godfrag, but I don't think they're up anymore. But at the time, he was, I think, the person with the highest kills to death ratio or whatever.
Would make sense.
I think it's like Well, he's a kind of a player who needs somebody to make him room, and if something goes wrong, then he's simply not going to be that good. So
Yes.
same goes with ruuit. Like both of them,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
need somebody to make them space and keep them happy, if you will.
Sure. Right, let's do this then. Let's get into this lineup because you talk about these players. I may as well ask about this. Let's talk about contE for a second. If people don't know, basically, the joke is, I don't know if you know this story. At the end of 1.6, there's a famous story, right, where Get Right already had started to play like a little bit baity and a little bit like lurking or whatever because he was just really good at obviously he was a really good player, right? And supposedly the story goes that Robin told him like, no, that's going to be like your role. You're just going to like bait all the time. And the joke is, I always say like, because people are like, that's when they invented like the lurker role. And I was like, contE was like way ahead of you. He was like Tesla compared to you guys. Like, because the joke is like you're saying, his entire game was for real. Like, I'm always going to be the one in the 1v1. I'm always going to be the last alive. It's why you said he had the best K to death ratio. It's not that he had the craziest stats and killed everyone. It's just that essentially he would play super baity. But as you say, this is the killer factor. For some people, they might think that's a negative in Counter-Strike. It's famously something people complain about. But as you sort of alluded to, if you did make him comfortable in that sense, he was fucking amazing at winning those like 1vx's. And he was really, like, if he could play his game, he was really good, wasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, at least back then, I think that he was one of the best in that role. And I also think that it was kind of new role at a time. Like most teams did not have like a baiter or lurker, at least not to that extent. But in that team, I think it worked because we also had like the most aggressive player probably
Ever.
team at a time. So it kind of balanced it out because we had ruuit and then we had the other people, and then we had this one really kind of passive person who was always going to be left in the 1v whatever.
Yes.
But,
Well, then the other thing, like you're saying, you led into it there, is the other weird thing about this team was it was one of the only teams, but you also have to understand if you're a casual fan listening back now, we didn't have roles in the same way. You just got a bunch of players together. You sort of just divvied up spots. Like, I'm going to go here, you go there, and you tweak it as you go, Whereas the joke is in your team, just because of these extreme personalities, it just made the team have an obvious structure. Like, as you say, you had the most passive player, who's like the closer, and then the other star, ruuit, the joke was he was like the most aggressive player maybe ever in Pro CS. Like, yeah. I always used to say to this guy, because it's funny, if people might not know this, as an aside, he actually totally disagrees with me, lurppis. He thinks he like played it correctly all the time. But I always used to tell him this, dude. I was like, the crazy thing about you, dude, is like you can either win your team the game, but you can also lose your team the game in the same round. Because he's the guy where the joke is, I'll give you a random CS example, every old fan will know. If you play Dust 2, right, and you're on CT side, right, first of all, CTs don't usually go out of the CT side of the map. You wait for the Ts to come. Say he pushed up like mid on like the catwalk, or he pushed up like, low B tunnels. Say you go there and you get the initial part of what's going to be a frag movie highlight, don't you get the first 2 kills? If you just pull back after the 2 kills, the stats are going to say you win the round like 95% of the time. His brain would go, get all the kills, and he would push. So he either would kill them all, or he might then just instantly feed the kill back, and then suddenly it's. So what was it like to play with someone like this? Because it seems like again he had a very defined style, right?
Yeah, that was kind of funny example, but yeah, I think it was different, and sometimes it was fine, sometimes it was not so fine because it really depended. Like he was not one of the people who played a lot. Like if we go home from an event, most of us we would keep it up, if you will. If we had like 1 week at home between events, we would all just play for fun or something like this. He was like completely different. Like on normal days, if we started practice at 6 p.m. for example, like we did, he would show up like 2 minutes before that and start playing. And then I think that's like it made it really random because you never knew like if he's gonna be on form or if he's not. But the thing is, like, he did not do anything differently. Like if he was not on form, he would still do all of the stupid shit till something
yes, exactly
happens. But yeah, when you said the Dust 2 example, I actually had a good memory. It was some event in DreamHack. I was too young to play, so we had Barak actually filling in. So I was just, following them in there. And they played some not so good Swedish team. Can't remember which. Anyways, we started on Dust 2 CT, and Ruuit, he died like, I can't remember if it was MR 12 or 15, but anyways, he died 15 rounds.
You can see where the story's going, fans. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, he died 15 rounds in a row, mid, like trying to win the 1v1 with the AWP. And every round, people were like, okay, stop it, just go B or A or whatever. Fuck it, I'm better than this guy. Yeah.
That's a great. That is who he was as a player. But that, like I said, same with the contE one. Obviously, there's pros and cons, as you say. When it works, you just go look. Just let him do it. Just let him fucking do it. By the way, that's the thing I always wondered about, because you set it up perfectly when I asked you about you. Obviously, right? lurppis is smart enough also to know, like, you give the star players what you call like a little bit more of the reins. You know, you don't control them too much because you know they need to be comfortable. It sounds like with these two players as well, like you were making a bit of the space for them. Like you guys created the structure, and then they were the stars within it, right? Because I always thought this. If you notice when they were before your teams, they were like good players, but no one was like, "This is the next guy you've got to what." It was your teams that sort of gave them the platform, right?
Yeah, and I don't even know like why it happened like this. I don't know if it was a like good mixture because they were, you know, different than if like normal players, if you will, like completely different. One is super aggressive, one is kind of passive, and I don't know. I guess we balance it out well, and It might be also because my brother did good, like leading the team.
Yes,
maybe give him some credit as well, but yeah, some kind of mixture. Yeah,
I wondered where you were on this mix though, because one thing you're gonna have to understand if you're a casual fan that you have to is the entire like ambience behind all Finnish teams is they're really weird in the sense that like that story before where something's going on and you didn't hear about it. Like everyone's always like thinking, are we going to cut someone in the team? Right? And there's always like the politics of like, and the joke really is you can tell by who's friends with who. Like, there's 3 of those friends over there. Shit, I'm not in that friend group. Like, I'm on the chopping block. Like, and people are just, it's like Game of Thrones. You know, like every episode there's a new drama element, and so along these lines, I've heard back in the day, one thing that used to drive lurppis crazy in this team was those players were amazing, but as we just explained, because they were so extreme, they had obvious flaws in games where they did a bad job and it wasn't appropriate how they played their style. But the problem is, I've heard these are 2 of the players who just didn't want to hear it. Like, they don't want to have, you know, in the modern days of course, you do the VOD review and you go, guys, pause, was this the right decision? Like, I can't even imagine if you could go back and do it with these guys, because I've heard like it was more like they just never wanted to review that. They always thought they did the right move, and it's sort of like you had to just, in a way, you had to just let them be. Is it true?
Yeah, I can't remember if we ever did like demo reviews or something like that, because I know like at least every single time if you asked Ruuit, for example, like, well, maybe not like was this the smart move, because it wasn't most of the time, but like if you try to tell him not to do something, he would completely disagree, because like I don't think that he was never interested in whether it was a good idea or not. He would simply just respond like, I'm better, I can do it. Like,
he was basically the original Giga Chad, apparently, right?
Yeah, but I think that's it really worked for him when he was on form, because like nobody would expect anything like this. It was so extreme.
Yes. Right, here's the cool thing as well. Even this team, dude, has like the makings of a fucking great documentary. Because if people don't know, I remember all this shit, mate. That was right back then, right? What happened was they had the Friends team like that. That was like the wings into serious gaming, and it got to a certain level, but you didn't go beyond that. And then famously, you made this switch. You brought in Ruuit and contE, and you remember this. You did this little streak of tournaments that were all in a row. You did like it was like a Code 5 qualifier in Spain into a Game Goon like the next day, into like Code 5 itself that you went to, into like WSVG, and the whole rest of the year, basically, this team was always like top 4. You were like in the semis of all these tournaments, you come in second sometimes. Like, it basically was an example of a move that, like, as much as, you know, people don't want to believe you shouldn't make like roster moves, you should work on your problem. Like, sometimes roster moves, if the players are the right players, it just is the fix. Like, it seems like this team immediately was good.
Yeah. To be honest, I can't even remember the exact reason why we did it, but I remember like right after WEG, the Korea tournament, somebody gave Barak, like, what do you call it, like the trial period for World of Warcraft, and basically he was gone after that,
right.
And then his brother was shortly like gone as well. So then I think it was just me, my brother, and
Tonpa,
I can't remember.
Was he around then?
Who?
Was Tonpa in the team yet?
No, he...
Maybe it was Kobe then.
No, I'm actually not sure. But anyway, I can't remember what happened with Kobe. I'm not sure if he went to army at that point, or what happened. But basically, we were just like, we had to find a few players, and basically there were not so many players in Finland, and you could say that we got kind of lucky because we could get both of them. I think ruuit, he played for Australis at least for a while.
Yes.
Can't remember if contE played for Australis as well, but I remember that we played like some of those weekend tournaments, like basically as a mixed team, and I don't know, it just felt like good. It was really easy, obviously really, really good.
Sure. Let me ask you about, I do want to actually ask about some specific tournaments. So obviously we can't do them all. You did a million, but I've got a couple I would like to talk to. Because one, for example, is a really cool one. Because again, if you have to know the context, it's a really interesting one, which is when you went to the WSVG London tournament. This was another one. It's like that, the WEG one, mate. If you look at the teams, dude, there's like SK Gaming and teams that were like CPLs there. Like, there's all these stacked NOA, all these teams. You guys not only came second, but famously, the team that came first themselves was a surprise. It was when the Poles first came along. You remember this? They also went from, they used to be like here, and then they did the roster, and they became fucking what the hell? So I want to know that. One, what was it like to actually be in a final, like a LAN final? And then two, do you remember what the Polish team was like to play against? Because it seems like you guys had some great battles over the years with those guys.
Yeah, I do. They were always nightmare to play against. But when you said, I remember, was there any other good teams in the tournament?
Yeah, there was like NIP. Look, here's the thing. Because they didn't win, they obviously changed their roster, so people think it was a bad lineup. But they had people I think Spawn was still on Spawn was on NIP, and SK Gaming had I'm sure all those guys like Vilden and stuff. They had those big name teams here. Yeah,
I can't remember those guys. But anyways, I think all of us, we were really disappointed after losing to the Polish guys, because I think before this tournament they were kind of nobodies, much like us a little while ago. But I have no idea what kind of special sauce they had. But right after this tournament, they became pretty good. I think they won 3 tournaments in a row. I think
they won World Cyber Games right after this.
Yeah, and then ESWC maybe.
Yep.
Yeah.
In a few more months. Yeah.
I don't know, the pentagram or what do you want to call them. I think at least in 1.6 they were always the hardest team to play. We had a joke. I remember it was some tournament in the Cebit.
So it was an IEM event then?
Yeah, maybe. Some tournament.
Or like a Samsung European Championship, one of the two, right? One of those.
I remember it was actually the tournament where we swapped mouses with contE in the group stage.
That was a Samsung European Championship because you did it against fucking Goldbrick from the UK. Don't worry, that story's coming up. That's coming up, mate. Don't even worry about that. I got all the fucking chambers loaded.
No,
come on.
But anyways, I remember in this tournament when at some stage we had to play the Polish guys, and everybody from our team, we were just laughing because we had no idea. It felt impossible. I have no idea how, by any other team, we could win. But when we played against them, we had absolutely no way of winning. I don't know why. Right. I have no idea why.
By the way, go on, keep going.
Yeah, but London, I don't know. I remember we were really disappointed by not winning. It was nice tournament anyways. Still waiting to get paid, but yeah.
So WSVG died shot the next year or something. True.
No, but they actually refused to pay us because I was underage.
Oh, they got you with a loophole.
But we never agreed on any of this. We asked before the tournament if it's okay for me to play. They were like, okay, yeah, good. And then shortly after the tournament, I don't know who said it, but they were okay. We agreed before the tournament that you're not going to get any money. Okay, yeah. Do you really think that we're going to come there?
Exactly. Yeah, true. By the way, as an aside, that's an obvious question I should set up now then, which was, look, as much as those guys might be dicks, the worst thing about being amazing when you're 14, 15, 16, you know this, is CPL in Dallas means you have to be 17 years old. So if people don't know, when you were the best player in the early rosters, every year a team would go to Dallas and they'd be like, right, you're not playing. And then they'd have to bring in some ringer and then they'd be way worse. And then obviously lurppis would come home to me and message me if we would have won this game or would have won that game, but you could never play. That was a bit whack having to sit on the sidelines, I'm sure.
Yeah, and also because I think it was the biggest tournament at a time, and it was also in the US. I think I had never been to the US at that point, so I was would have been nice
Oh, I hadn't even thought of that angle. Yeah, because if people don't know, at the time, this is like the end of it, but winning CPL was still like essentially like being the world champion, wasn't it? It must suck even more that you have to literally sit at home and you just never get to play in that tournament. Every other tournament, you play the same team. You can go to Asia and play. You can't go and play in it. You just sat back like the fuck.
Yeah, I actually never got to play in the like normal CPL, if you wish. I played in Brazil, like the World Tour. And,
Right.
But I think that was the only one. I was in the World Tour in Barcelona as well, but I was only there to chill. We had someone playing against me.
Okay.
Not against people that replaced me. Because, they wouldn't allow me to play.
Yes, indeed. Right. Obviously, I have to ask you a quick question because you mentioned the polls there. Right. This is a detail that. This is where also lurppis doesn't always know when like he thinks things and fans don't. I rewatched back that little documentary that Drop the Bomb did about you guys when you were in like the end in CS:GO, and it was about you and lurppis, right? And in it, lurppis goes, I'm sure if you asked any fan, they'd say the best players for movement were Neo and my brother. And it's like, yeah, everyone's saying Neo lurppis. Like nobody's going to say fucking your brother. Like wasn't that famous? But I agree. I've watched all the demos, but you did have really good movement. All I wanted to know was this: one, do you think Neo also had the best movement? And then two, did you practice it a lot? Because I've noticed if I ever watched you from behind, back in the day, I could like stand behind you guys. You would always be practicing those like ladder jumps and moves and stuff. That was like your warm up, right?
Yeah, I mean that's what I did. But I guess it's also because I play Quake, so it's like
right.
Something from there. But I don't know. I don't really agree on Neo having the best movement or anything like this. But it's only because I played in the same team with plastE and Basic. I think Basic was by far the most like skilled mechanically, or if movement, mechanics, anything, he was into like on a different level. But it's he only played for a few years, so I don't think many people are gonna even remember him.
No.
Yeah, but still, I played with him for a year or two, I think. But yeah, I think he was by far the best when it comes to those.
Okay. I will say, put it this way, bearing in mind he started as one of those Finns that was like an onliner, he was definitely the guy who knew every little edge in CS, everything in the config, every angle. You could do this, you could look through that smoke. By the way, I love those nerds. I love the people who just go super deep on it like that. Sick. Right, I've got to ask you, in this time period, there's an obvious tournament, because spoiler, this is one of those ones where, if you know lurppis, like I said, he's a tryhard in the good way though. Like he is the guy where, like, here's the difference. I really do believe that ruuit would lose a massive match and then just go like, oh, well, here's what it is. Have a beer and just go to sleep and not give a fuck, right? Get him tomorrow. lurppis is the guy who'd be up all night like, oh, we should have done this and we would have done that round. If we ecoed there, if that Deagle killed it. And so one of the ones I know haunts him, dude, is even though you won a World Cyber Games medal, cool, 2006, you won a bronze. Oh, yeah. But here's the problem. You guys almost beat Nip, who at the time was the best team, and sure, the Poles were in the final. But like, to him, he says at minimum there should be a silver medal. And who knows, if you win, obviously if you won, could be a gold. Like, he says this is one of the matches that got away from you. And this ties into a classic theme of this interview, which is, I know it's mad because somehow this shouldn't, real life shouldn't work in video games, but the biggest enemy of Finns in massive pressure matches is bloody Swedes. Like, they just start like it's like in hockey, you know the story, you're always up 1 goal, then they win 2-1 at the end of the game. Like, what happened in this tournament? This sounds like the one that got away.
Yeah, there was, I think it was right after the London tournament. And because of that, I think we felt like if we played the Poles again, we would have won. Because like at this point, they were not so much of a nemesis yet. But yeah, I think when we played NIP, third map, I think we were up a lot, maybe 14-10, 15-10, something like this. And yeah, Train CT, we lost like, well, a 4-spy for them, like against Deagles. Then I can't remember, maybe I've blocked it from my memory, but something happened, we lost. I don't know if it was even on overtime, but anyways, yeah, that was the most painful tournament I think I can come up with, because I remember like when we lost the game, we had a shuttle from the venue to a hotel.
Yep.
And I remember like nobody said a word during the shuttle. Everybody was like so mad. It was.
Wasn't it also that thing as well? Because I think I know another detail. Wasn't it also, because again, this was an event that's like out in another, wasn't it something like the shuttle, obviously, logically, would be you and then the team that just beat you or something, right? Wouldn't you have to like go home with this? Because that used to be a mad thing back in the day. That was a bit awkward, wasn't it? You'd play against those guys, they'd all get on a bus and wait half an hour for them to get on as well. Then you'd have to like, they'd all be celebrating, oh, yeah, great game, like, and you're just in the back like, fucking hell.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's how it was every time. Like if the games were late in the evening or something like this, you would always have the happy team and the not so happy teams.
Yes.
But yeah, that was horrible game. Now that you mentioned it, I can remember other game that hurt so bad.
Oh, don't worry. I'll bring a few up later on. Don't worry about it. Because here's the thing, right? By the way, since you referenced it and in the chronology we're about there now, I have to ask you about, I wondered if you even remember this, mate. I think this is one of the stupidest stories of all time, which is, as you said, right? You're at a tournament, Samsung European Championship. So as the name suggests, it was the European version of WCG. So think of it this way. If WCG was the World Cup, this was the European Championship in football, if you know the analogy, right? And at this tournament, look, I get it, mate. I'll give you a little bit of a break at the beginning. You were playing goldbrick, which was Rattlesnake's UK team. And true, at the time, you know this, that was the era when, like, look, Four Kings was ages ago, but this is when, like, UK teams were a bit of a meme. Like, they were a team that, I'm sure in scrims you would have crushed this team, right? But explain this, because the story goes, you didn't tell lurppis I heard this. You just, before the match, you and contE just decide, like, I think it was like first round of the upper bracket or something, like, lol, why don't we swap rouses and see what happens? But then obviously, like Curb Your Enthusiasm theme players, you lost the game. You lost the game to them.
I think, did we lose or did we get?
I think you lost like 16-14 or something ridiculous.
Yeah, I can remember. It was, I know.
Why did you think to do that though? Is that just the way you guys were?
Kinda, but also before this event, I remember that we had a boot camp in somewhere in Germany for like, I think it was a week or even more than a week.
Okay.
And when you play, we actually played a lot. Like all of the boot camps with these teams, like if we boot camp, we would play like 12 hours a day or something like this, crazy amounts. So I remember maybe it was like the last night, last evening, something like this. Everybody is a little bit tired of all of the playing and this. And I was watching contE play. I can't remember if it was like CSD or whatever. Anyways, he was playing something. I was like, okay, like the mouse, it looks good. I was like, let me try it. And I tried it. I was okay, this feels pretty good. He was like, he wanted to try my mouse. And I was like, okay, this is kind of decent. So when we got to the event, at some point, we were like, okay, let me try it. Because, as you said, we were playing a team that is kind of a filler. Like,
it's like the warm-up match, right?
Yeah, you had like good teams. Then you had these teams from UK and,
I mean, there was teams from like Greece, there would be like teams that weren't relevant, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it was partly because of the mouse, but I don't know. I guess we was just, bored, played too much within a few weeks, I don't know, and not so serious game after all.
Because I want to ask you now about what I've alluded to a few times about the fact that your brother was the tryhard. I mean, here's the thing. Even though a lot of your players were skilled, I do give him a lot of the credit. Like, one of the things Finland lacked, and it did afterwards as well, is in-game leaders. That's why when, like, Alexi B came along in CSGO, I've always supported him because, like, dude, there are very few people want to do that role in Finnish CS. There's a lot of people like to play, have fun, frag out. Like, I've got the army in a few years. I'm good, whatever. There's very few people want to be like a pro and sit down and do the boring stuff, look at a demo, do strats. And so as a result, the reason why I know all these stories, mate, it's not just because I was friends with him, because you can imagine these are all the stories that when he finds them out later, like, so in that match we just lost, you were using his map, like, these are like the ones that drive him crazy, like, what do you say about your brother in that sense? It seems like he has a very different philosophy on, like, gaming than other people.
Different philosophy, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, I guess he was always like a person who, when he does something, he does it with 110% everything. Me, maybe not so much, but it doesn't matter. Like, I guess we're a little bit different in there, and as you can tell from these stories, but I don't know, I respect, both ways of working, if you will.
Okay. Right, I've got another one to ask you about, so we'll see if this jogs any memories. Sadly, by the way, if you're a fan and you're like, what the hell? The guy has a massive career and you're asking him about all the losses. It's because, spoiler, unfortunately, one of the themes of the interview is your teams and the Finnish scene in general was always on the cusp of greatness. You know that. Like, there were so many times you, like, the third best team in the tournament, you lost to the quarterfinals, or you could have beat the team. And so there's another one. You remember ESWC the next year when he played FNATIC in the quarterfinals? Because this is the one where, like, I'm going to go off the top of my head here, but I'm pretty sure it was like this. Are you ready? So you're playing against the FNATIC with Forrest and all those guys, really sick lineup. And then what happens is, as far as I remember, I'm almost certain it was like this. It was like you win map 1, because nearly always you guys would have like, a train or a nuke that was like your home map. You win that. Then you go to the second map. The second map might even have been nuke. And you're also like good on that one. It would always be like this close second map that you just lose. Now, if this was a different team and different mentality, different nationality, you go, right, regroup, heads in for the third game. We come back, guys, we're going to beat them. But I've heard that in this series, right, when you like lose the second map close, which you thought you were going to win and win 2-0, then people in the team would even just be like, and again, this is where if you lurppis, you hear this later, you're like, why is my life like this? He said to me that people would even just be like before the game's even begun, it's like, we're probably just going to lose the third map now. We needed to win that one. Like, we were planning on winning, like the first and second, and like the third one. And again, this is against Swedes, by the way. It's Finns against Swedes. Like, do you remember this matchup? Do you remember this one?
I think I do. At least I remember one game against FNATIC in Paris. But well, what you just mentioned, like, yeah, it sounds really familiar. I think the team we had with both contE and ruuit, we had like. They would get demoralized really fast,
right?
Me included, maybe. But I think in this game, I can't remember if it was like the last map or the second map, but I know that we played nuke. I think we were up 12-3 or something like this after CT side, and we lost the game. I don't know if this was like the second map which got us really demoralized, or if it was the last.
Actually, I think for this one, maybe I got the wrong way around. Maybe they like won first map and you were supposed to win this one or something, and then they made 2-0. Yeah, but it was a close series, is the point.
Yeah, but yeah, what you just mentioned, I think it paints a good picture of how things were with both contE and ruuit. They were really good players, but they were both they would get triggered really easily, if you will. Like there's a good shotgun story from WEM. Couple of years later. Oh,
another one where exactly if they're losing the game, they just start buying stupid guns and stuff. Like, here's the funny thing about that: like, no one would do that in CS:GO. It's not really a thing, right? Because obviously everyone's has to be so pro. But like, yeah, if you just really didn't give a fuck, people would do silly things like that back then.
Yeah, and if you like compare buying a shotgun now to buying a shotgun in 1.6,
it's terrible in 1.6, wasn't it? Yeah, it was a dog shit gun, exactly.
Yeah, but I think. With this team and at least the teams before this team, we had the same problem with like when things were going well, we had no problems. But with the slightest problems we had, we would fall apart like this. Yeah.
That's why I was actually surprised to say you said you also felt like you lost motivation, because I would have said in these teams from the outside and watching the demos, I always thought you were like almost like the insurance policy when things went wrong. Like, you were very good in clutches. Sometimes when people would have a bad game, you just pop off and win a bunch of 1v2s and stuff.
Yeah, sometimes maybe, but yeah, I guess in WCG when we lost to NIP, the close game, we had the third place game against NOA. Maybe?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard stories, but I think at least in one of the maps we played nuke, CT. Like I would rush the entire game, just go die from yard because I was still so mad about the last game against NIP, and yeah, not my proudest moment, but
fair enough.
But yeah,
at least you won the game. At least you won that one, though. That story's not as bad because you won. Okay,
that's true.
Right. What about this then? So another thing I want to ask about was there's a similar story the next year, but this is the one where you're supposed to get a medal and you didn't. You know this one. Remember the piece of trivia? And I know lurppis hates this fucking piece of trivia.
Seattle?
Yeah, it's the trivia where it goes like this. It was because everyone knows now later Na'Vi became Secures later. Now, obviously, Ukraine, like Simple's the best player in the world. Now it won't seem weird. But back then, Ukraine was irrelevant in CS. Like, again, if their team came, like in general, the Russian and Ukrainian teams weren't that relevant. But if their team came, like you'd just look and you'd go, right, we're going to win that match and go to this and go. And so this team, Amazing Gaming, with literally, there's not a joke guy, Blade, he was in this team. It was in 2007. He's played forever, by the way. He's a fucking vampire or something. Starrix was in this team as well. This is like all these old guys. And this is the thing. This is the story I need to ask you. It's not that you lost to these guys. That's fine. But I've heard that the circumstances, this is some absolute bullshit shenanigans. I've heard this was where, like, you know, it was like you almost won. I've heard you actually like won the map or something. And then the refs were like, we're going to take like a round off you for like no reason or something. And then they were like, it was one of those ones where, you know what WCG refs were like. Sometimes they were just mad shady as to like who won the mound or what the judgments were. I've heard lurppis thinks he was sort of robbed of this one and that he was supposed to beat them.
I mean, obviously we were rocked because, as you said, it was like one of the better tournaments for us, at least from the beginning. Because before this game, we won FNATIC, and then we actually won the polls.
Yep.
That was like a huge thing at the time. And then, obviously when we knew that we're gonna play the Ukrainians, we were like, no one would even think twice, like, are we gonna win the game? But I don't know if there was something odd. I remember we had like a pause. I think it was maybe the last.
I think it was like one of those ones where maybe someone dropped from the server. It was all those ones where the admin has to decide if you play the round or not,
Yeah, we had a pause, and then there was some discussion like how much money you're gonna give them, because you did not have like any logs. How much money did you have? So you had to give like everybody the same amount.
Oh, and you know this, mate. Back then, pros would just lie. Like, if I had the demo, a guy died with 3K, and he'd be like, well, actually, I had an AWP, I had fucking 2K in the bank, and, they would all just, because everyone was trying to get, like, the ref to go on their side. It's like football, you just appeal into the ref, like, I didn't foul him, it's like that.
Yeah, but that I remember, but I'm not sure if there was something else, but I know that my brother, he got really mad at this, because he was so sure that he's right, like, how it should be, and then the refs, they ruled kind of against him, and so I can't remember what happened. I have blocked it from my memory.
It's all good.
Well.
Too traumatic.
Yeah, but again, this was one of the tournaments that I think we were supposed to win, or at least go far, because the team that won it, I think, was Emulate. Yep. Yeah, that was really odd tournament, because I think, like, if you look at it on paper, the only team that we might have lost was NOA.
Yep.
But then again, like, even if we won, it might have been like another shit story against the Frenchies in the finals. So, I don't know.
True. Right, obviously for that one, I've skipped around a little bit here. I'm going to actually rewind a bit, because one of the teams I did actually always think was a very interesting one was where you had the same core, but then you got natu as the fifth player. Because if people don't remember, at the time, like, look, if we're going to the years back, natu was a very good player. In fact, he was a bit like you, was an all-round player. He always fit into teams. He always knew, like, if this guy's the star, let him be the star. If I'm in a lesser team, maybe I'll take over. But I know in this team, because I'd known him a long, long time, this was actually when, like, his game had gone off the cliff a little bit. Like, his skills had gone down. He definitely wasn't, like, a big player like before. But the key I was always told by lurppis and the rest was he was a super veteran, though. And so the key thing, and think about this team is a team with a lot of egos, a lot of people want to do things. Even though I'm sure if we had the Gottfrag stats, he's not going to have good stats. Like, is it true? I got the vibe he was one of those players that could have, like, bad stats, but sort of, like, make the team environment better or something, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to give him a lot of credit. Like, when he joined, I think he made us a lot better. Like, I don't know if it was... He played much of the same role that I did before, I think. Like, he was kind of supporting, making sure that everybody else plays well. Of course, he was really smart, having played so long, having experience from here and there. So I think, he helped us a lot when he joined. But I was just trying to remember what happened, but I think it was just some personal stuff that we had to replace him at some stage. But yeah.
But the cool thing is, though, when he joined, as you remember, this was another one. You notice how all your lineups go like this. When he joined, the team just suddenly had this crazy little run of form. You remember, like, one of the first big events, if you remember, was after the first, like, couple when he just stood in, was like, you went to the NGL one, and I have to explain this to people. NGL was, I guess I'll make the analogy like blastE. It was an alternate circuit that had its own teams. You have a group stage, and then, this is why I say it's a bit like blastE. It wasn't like a giant LAN. It was a small 4-team LAN, because it was in Germany, if people don't know. It was like a rival of ESL. But the cool thing was, if you just made the LAN final, because it was so top heavy, you already made prize money. So the cool thing was, if you just made LANs, you're already there. But this was the one where you went and you beat FNATIC, with the real FNATIC, with Thorin and all those fucking guys. Yeah. You guys were beating them, and you got, like, in fact, there's even a screenshot all lurppis used to pull out when people in CSGO were like, you were shit in one point. There's a screenshot where it is, like, against FNATIC, and he's, like, top fragging, and you're like, Forrest has, like, 8 kills, and he has, like, 14, and something like. By the way, only lurppis would have that saved on his computer all those years later, or, like, in a folder.
That's a lot of images.
There you go. Yeah. But yeah, this must have been a big event, because as we're saying, look, the problem with your team was, it was always like, yeah, really good team. You were always like the potential team, you know what I mean? And this was an event where you just did it. You just actually did blow people up the server.
Yeah, I don't know. It might have been just, him bringing good balance, but at the same time, I'm just trying to figure out, like, did we replace Tampa with him? Maybe this
is what natu replaced.
Yeah,
Tampa,
so I think he was. I think it was like an upgrade, anyways, like on all fronts, if you will. So, and I think he was a person who could, like, somehow tame ruuit and contE a little bit, like, because he was experienced, older, and all of this, like, they would maybe listen to him a bit more than, like, the rest of us. So I think he he played a big role in there. But I remember we played FNATIC. We won. There's a good video out of it. We're really happy. I can't remember which other teams we played, but I think we played FNATIC in the finals again. And,
Yes.
I remember having like a demoralized moment in there as well, because I think we were like really close to winning, and then all of a sudden we were kind of blowing it.
Right,
again.
so it's bringing back the bad memories.
Yeah, and but yeah, we ended up winning, and that was, I think, like the first bigger, or at least the biggest event we had won. Like,
yeah.
This state, so that was awesome.
And here's the detail that people will absolutely forget. It's why you got to be the esports historian and all this stuff, mate. Like, it is true. I've got to add this context first. This was a period where, unlike other eras where there'd always be the dominant team, this was where like some of the lineups were like changing, and it was kind of like a really wide. It's a bit like CS:GO right now. If people don't know, it's pretty wide open. There's maybe 4 or 5 teams that could rise. And so in this period, your team actually became number 1 in the world. Like, you remember this? You won NGL. You went back to Finland and you beat the Finns at like a fucking, I'm going to guess it was like assembly or something. You know, you went to the Aces tournament where you played against like Forza or something. So you beat like the best Russian team at the time. And then you went to WSVG Louisville where like SK was there, Mouse Sports, and these are real teams. Like, you had a little tournament, like you won like 4 little tournaments in a row, like a couple big, one medium. Like, this must have been a nice little period to actually just be winning, not ever have these bad stories that at the end of the tournament, right?
No, I mean, that was, probably the best few tournaments in a row that we ever had, as you said. I don't know. Something clicked, like when natu joined. All of a sudden, we got a little bit better, which was like the deciding factor in like most of the time. But I remember in Louisville, I think we had like a really good track record against SK, for example. Like they were a good team back then, but like anytime we would face them, we had no, like we would know that we would win. Like I don't know, we just had like an upper hand against them, and then the other teams, I don't know. At that point, I don't think we had like any team that we could not beat. Like, I can't remember what happened with the Poles because they were not in NGL.
I don't think they went to these tournaments. Like the problem, if you remember, is they used to have shit internet, so I don't think they could qualify to NGL because it was an online tournament. Like, you guys would have like probably you'd have 11 ping and they'd probably have 40 or something, you know. So yeah, that all worked out for you.
Oh yeah. Well, that must have been it. But I think like for the longest period of time, they were the only team we had so much trouble winning against.
Right.
It's unreal. Like any other team. I don't know if NIP was a thing back then, but like SK, for example, that's a really good example. Like, I remember we would play like train against them almost every month in some tournament. Like, and we would know, like, even if we got 4 rounds as T, we would still win the game. Like, because we were so confident in both playing them and playing the map.
What about this then? Because here's what's mad. I've heard a story that I wondered if it was true, or if you remember it, which goes like this. Even though your team could win events and you were placing top and all this shit, and in theory you're a top team, I've heard there were times in the history of this lineup and this core where you would actually get booted out of that like scrim channel on MIRC because like the team would just like fuck around when they were getting annoyed, they were losing the game, like you said, like buy shotguns or something, or like just troll because you play. And I heard some of the other teams would sometimes just kick you out the channel or be like, we're not fucking scrimming you if you're going to do that. Like, because you know that again, the Swedes were all try hard, you know, they were all like, oh, I'm going to go scrim. Is this true? Was the practice environment sometimes dodgy?
I don't have any clear memories of that, but I know that at some stage we had some teams who refused to play against us because, like, as you said, like when you practice, like that's not the place to just do stupid shit, because if you do, then you might just not play. But, you know, for our team, you know, what you described happened a lot. Like we had contE, he was a guy who would get really pissed out of, you know, basically nothing. So like during practice, I don't know, something goes wrong and he would buy a shotgun and, you know, do stupid shit and this. And at least the Swedes, I don't know other teams. I know in a way they were really mad at us.
There's another set of tryhards for sure.
Yeah.
The Danes.
Yeah, it was different times.
By the way, can I ask you a question? Oh, go on.
No, but I was just gonna say, like, but I think it's completely different. Like if you compare it to, you know, now, because I don't think anybody would do it right now because the stakes are so high. Like back then, where are we? 2007. I think that's like the only year we ever got salary playing.
Right.
And as you said, we were the best team in the world for a short period of time. And what we got as salary was, can't remember the exact amount, but it was something like if I worked the summer, I would get like 5 times more during a month.
Right.
So, to put it in context, like how it might not feel like an actual job or something, like you want to focus on 100% all of the time, is like completely different.
By the way, even though it might sound weird, I actually have found in Counter-Strike, in the same way there's that weird thing where if you know someone's style of play and you meet them, their personality often like shares elements of like how they play, like whether they play aggressive, whether they like the smart player. I've noticed similarly, like national stereotypes actually do play out in Counter-Strike. Like famously, the Swedes, if you don't know, it's just like Sweden, the country. They just think they should be the best. Like just because they're Swedish, they should be number one. And if you know their style of play, they never were like the uber tactical ones. They would play like a default style, but they just had all the star players. And their logic is, if we all play well, we win the game. The Danes, like you say, it's same as CSGO now. They're like nerds. They're more like almost like the Germans. Like this is a system. Like you play this role, you do that. But if you do the structure, that's what's going to make us win, right? Now I have to insert what are the Finns like, because it seems like a very different style, right? On the one hand, it seems like people sometimes were sort of like, who gives a shit? Like, we don't really care. As you said, sometimes the team could be the good team to do an upset or something. What do you think the Finnish teams that you were, what would their identity be in CS, do you think? How would you describe it?
I mean, at least back in the days, it would have to be something like no one gives a shit, pretty much. Like
there you go.
It's just a mentality. Like
yes.
At best, we would be doing things by the book and playing somewhat normally, if you wish. But most often than not, something goes wrong. Somebody gets mad, and this happens.
Okay, that's a good way to describe it. Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
What about this then? Because after this period in time comes the era when a lot of the results weren't necessarily as good in this end of the 2007. And I remember you came to the next year, and I still think this is one of the maddest moves of all time, which is maybe it's in line with the fact that, as I've been setting it up as though like sort of the tug of war within this team was like lurppis wants to be a pro team and be serious and beat all the top teams. The others are really skilled and they're more like, look, we can fuck around, and if we win, we win. If we don't, we don't. And I've heard essentially, they just got sick of lurppis stagging. And so magically, of all the people to get caught, it used to be like this person gets caught, and then this person comes, like fucking T-Hop would be in and then out, and then this guy's in and then out. Or everyone else could get caught except you, I notice. You and ruuit somehow never fucking got caught until the end. Mm-hmm. And then lurppis got caught out of the team, and people might know in 2008 you had some good results. That was the year where you had a lot of top fours again with this lineup. You had the really skilled lineup with T-Hop and plastE, like an all-star lineup, but you didn't have the IGL law. Like that's the thing I always wondered. Why would you kick your IGL, dude? Like, because here's the problem. That team, to me, sort of proved that you have to have an IGL, because it was a really good set of players. Like, that team maybe could have won things, right?
Maybe, yeah. But, I mean, I agree, but, like, that has to be one of the worst we could have made. And I don't know. I can't remember, like, what happened, but I remember somebody just telling me that, okay, we're going to do this. And I'm like, at that point, I was not so interested in Counter-Strike, if you will. Like, okay. I remember somebody telling me this, and I was against it, but I knew, like, if everybody else wants to do it, then it's like, okay, I can keep playing. And I think, we got T-Hop maybe replacing him. Even to this day, I think that was a terrible move. Like, any way you want to look at it, it was mostly just somebody was better friends with him.
Right.
I don't even know what happened, why we played so good, if you will. I don't know if it was like somebody like all of a sudden getting motivated because they had nobody to watch over them. Sure. They could do any stupid shit.
Yeah, the parents are aware, the kids can just play, right?
Yeah, I mean, something like this. And I don't know, something my brother, like, his explanation for this is that we had the structure, like the same structure we had before all of this, and then we made it work for a while. But
he says you just kept using his strat, so even though he wasn't there, everyone's like, wow, you didn't need him. It's like he said, I could just see him calling all the shit I was telling him before.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember, but I can imagine that being true. Like, I can't remember, maybe it was contE calling, could be.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and I know he's not a person who, figures out some 6 strats or anything like this. So I think it was like we were just doing the same thing, and it worked, but at some point, like we had to figure some new stuff out, and obviously we had nobody to do that, so we kind of hit a wall, maybe.
By the way, on your side, you explained it very well, but how does lurppis take that news? Like, here's the one thing, mate. If I'm going to play with my fucking brother, I better not get cut from the team, including with my own brother just staying. Like, if you're my brother, mate, you're coming with me. If I'm getting kicked, you're coming with me. Like, were you guys just cool with that? That must be an awkward conversation. Like, oh, I'm staying, by the way, but you're out.
Yeah, I mean, it was not fun. I remember like not really looking forward to this happening, and I know like if when it happened, if he had asked me like, okay, I still want to play, we want to do something, I would have gone with him. But I can remember like if he quit or what happened.
I think he just played in like the second best team at a few of the tournaments, but like with like Cuppy and people like that. I think didn't they have like some Logitech type team or some shit?
Yeah, I remember he played at least some events with them, but yeah.
Because you remember how it used to be, there'd be the professional top team yours, but there'd always be a second team with the team. Basically, the joke was it was like the audition to join your team, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. If he had asked, I most likely would have played with him. Yeah. Right. At that time, as I said, I was not so interested in playing CS that much because I was kind of burnt out. And at the same time, I knew like he was kind of the only person making sure that I even continue playing. Like if he was,
he was motivating you.
Yeah, like he was the person who told me like, okay, you know, we have practice now. You need to be here, and we're gonna fly to some event. We need to be at the airport this time. Like, so I don't know. Odd times.
I've got a specific game. We'll see if you remember. Spoiler, I hope you do, because it was absolutely one of the best games you ever played in your whole career. This year, 2008, you remember, the best team of 2008 was mTw from Denmark. They were the team that not only won the most events, but like they were a bit like Astralis, if people don't know. They used to be like a lock to just finish like top 4 or top 8. It's like you could beat them, but they were so good, they'd always going to make a certain point, right? And I remember it was
Dubai?
You know it is. So it was in IEM Dubai, and then this is, remember, we're at the end of the year now. Like your team's not supposed to win these. So you play against this team, and it was on Nuke, one of your best maps, by the way. Your whole career, I remember Nuke and Train, 2 of the best.
Yeah.
And this was a game where, mate, if people, you can get this, there's a POV demo, luckily. This is the year when thankfully they started making the POVs available. And mate, this POV's a banger. Like, I'm not joking, off the top of my head, you win like all clutches all day long. I think you're just winning every fucking duel. Do you remember this game? It was pretty sick.
I actually can't remember the game, but I remember the event. I don't know what happened. I know I played really well against mTw, then FNATIC, and maybe SK, and in the finals, but I don't know why. It was maybe just like, as you said, different mentality. Like up to this point, I played more of a support role, and then all of a sudden we don't have my brother telling me what to do, and then I'm like, okay, I don't really care. Like that was like everybody in the team. Like we would just do Finnish things, if you will, like do stupid shit. Sometimes it works, sometimes not. But like I don't know, I had a really good event.
Yeah. By the way, a name you mentioned earlier, and he was one of the guys who also came in around this era in the last year, was obviously the player plastE. Now, if people don't know, I'm actually glad you referenced him, because I always thought, mate, I don't know if he had some sort of nerve issues in international tournaments or something, but this player was way better than people remember. I've seen all the POVs, mate. He had really fucking crisp, like you say. He was another nerd. Like his movement's all sick, his fucking aim is sick. Like he has every pre-aim set up. Like he seemed like a really skilled player to me.
I mean, the way I described Basic, I think he was like another person who was really like at least one of the best mechanically in every way. And I remember like before he joined our team, we played together like some mixed games and whatnot. And I told everybody like, okay, we need to get this guy, because I know like either he's cheating or he's like the best player in Finland. And I don't know. I don't think he really had any weaknesses, but maybe it's really hard for somebody to be put in our team, like in the structure. I don't know, maybe he had like a wrong role or something like this, but I think he's, together with Basic, like the most talented and mechanically skilled players.
Okay. By the way, how did you actually in 1.6 see your own skills? Like, for example, did you think like, I'm as good as any of these players? Like if you play against Forrest and Neo and these guys, did you think you could go head to head directly with them? Do you ever think they were better than you?
I don't know. I always, not thought, but I had really good aim. Like back in the day, there was like I had no problems in there. But I always felt like Forest and Neo, they're like really hard to play against. I don't know why. Maybe it was because like everybody thought that they're the best. They had like every single week you would have a new highlight from either of them. Like I remember when we played against FNATIC or Pentagram, and like if we had a 3v1 against Forest, everybody would be like, okay, you know, don't peek his Forest.
Okay.
Like don't give him any chance. But I don't know. I never had like any issues. I always thought like I could match up.
I heard back in the day, this is the thing about having a brother, mate, I get all the info. I heard back in the day, you and Lurppis, whenever you would be at home and there was like an online tournament or LAN you were at, you guys, he said you would put a second monitor and you would just put it on Forest's POV on HLTV, and that would just be like, you just look over every now and then. Like that was like, did you also think he was just the shit? It sounds like you were a fan of his on some level. I mean, he was extremely good, right?
I can't remember this monitor story, but yeah, I think he was maybe like the best player of 1.6, at least up to the point before Get Right. And him and Zed, I think like those two, my favorites. Yeah.
Seems like you like the really skilled players, right?
Really skilled, and I don't know, they played the roles like they would get crazy highlights, so it's
Yes.
nice to watch.
Oh, exactly. The most entertaining. Yeah, that's maybe the better way to say it. Yes, indeed. I work hard to make sure I get mine, but no one can do it all on their own. And that's why everyone needs a support group. And so I have my Patreon community. Do you want to suggest a topic or a guest for my content? Maybe you want to ask a question in one of these monthly AMAs. Do you want teasers? Find out who the upcoming guests are. Or maybe you want to take part in one of those long discussions where you can help set the table of the topics and join in with other like-minded people. Well, if so, put your money where your mouth is and join the Skrilluminati today via the Patreon link below, as the following people who I very much appreciate did: Matt Pugnich, Rakula, Ahmed Haju, Kyle, Bot Pounder 420, Toucan, Animosity, Tobias Bernasconi, Jensen Gore, Tosh, and always, you know it, a special thanks goes out to Jerky's Minion.